And just like that, we are back to another episode of Two Addicts and a Moron.
Yes, we are.
Very excited today. We've got a very special guest in the house, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Becca. Why'd you laugh?
I don't know.
Hey, Miss Becca, everybody. Miss Becca. Hey.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I was super nervous.
Why? Let's talk about it right now. Let's work it out.
I mean, there's
Cameras and
fancy
shit?
cameras.
Yeah.
There's a fancy microphone.
Huh?
And I'm sitting in a corner brick wall.
Yeah.
It's a little suspect.
With graffiti on it.
Seems
and
a
shit.
little. Man, if I feel like I've been here before.
You can definitely tell a meth addict built this.
Yeah.
I know. I'm
For
like,
sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's super cool though.
But now that you've explained that, that makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Because most people come on here and they're like, I'm super nervous. And I'm like, why? And they're like, I mean, you explained that beautifully, though. You're like brick walls, graffiti,
Brick walls, graffiti,
gnats
cameras,
flying around.
microphones, tissues. I feel like I've been here before, but
Yeah.
you know.
Yep. Our sober water tissue box. Thanks, sober water.
He sent us some water too.
Oh,
He sent me a message.
nice.
Oh, fancy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
He sent us some more water.
Happy birthday too.
Is it
He
his
had
birthday?
he had a birthday the other day, I think.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, man.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy
too.
Valentine's Day.
Happy
all of it.
birthday, Ryan. I have no idea who you are, but you sound like a great dude.
Yeah. He was on the podcast
Wait, it's a
before.
dude, right?
He signed. Yeah.
Oh,
He
okay.
owns sober
Okay.
water.
Yeah.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah.
Super fancy.
Thing that almost just came.
Well, now permission to speak freely. Say whatever you want. We're going to ask you some questions here. We're going to get into it. And I'm pretty stoked to hear about your story. But we are going to introduce ourselves again. And we're also going to get back to the moment of silence.
We missed it last
We missed it last week.
Honor of Jay Klein.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the middle, Joey the Moron. Off to my
To
left.
the far left, Mike Stewboy, recovered addict, meth, GHB.
And
I am Becca. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
all right.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard. Take it away,
Second
sir.
tradition. I've never done this one, but we're going to bow our heads and say a little prayer for the addict who still suffers out there, for the families that have lost people along the way, for the children that have no choice in this, and for the ones that we loved along the way. Let them know that we miss them, we love them. Moment of silence. Thank you. It's a little shaky.
Yeah, you were nervous
I
during that.
got a little nervous
You
there.
were a little nervy. Yeah, that's okay.
Felt like the first time someone,
Well, that was a long time ago.
All right.
I'm
All right. So, Miss Becca, how long? Let me rephrase that. Miss Becca, what do I always ask?
How long have you been sober?
Yeah, how long have you been sober?
over 5.5 years. I'll have 6 years. April 6th.
Yeah.
Wow.
God willing.
God.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's
Thanks,
dope.
guys. There's a lot of help along the way.
And you touched on it. You said alcoholic, which I'm always very intrigued with. Just myself. Very much so. Yeah. Because that's everywhere, right? It's everywhere and it's legal. You don't hurt anybody but yourself when you do it. And it's a drug. You're poisoning yourself every time. And it's not like you're seeing meth being smoked on the front porch across the street. But you can see a guy crushing an 18-pack across the street, and nobody's going to bat an eye at it.
Well, and I think there's so much of like a stigma behind an alcoholic. It's like a lot of times people view an alcoholic as like, when they go to withdraw, they're shaking. It's like just they're never sober, right? Like they are consistently drinking day in and day out. And like that's what is deemed an alcoholic. But it was brought to my attention early on when, I didn't identify as an alcoholic at first. I knew I had an issue. I mean, kind of. I had to be convinced based off from like what I had done. And, you know, my first sponsor was like, you really don't think? And I'm like, no, man. And she like listed everything out. And I was like, I mean, it sounds a little irrational. But when it came to alcohol, like I really didn't think I did because I didn't drink day in and day out, you know, but I knew when I drank, I didn't drink for the taste. I was like, people drink for the taste? Like, what the fuck? I drank, I mean, it was to get away.
Yeah.
So much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a drug just like all the others.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Just way more acceptable.
Way more acceptable.
Way more.
And accessible.
Yes.
Way more accessible.
Oh, yeah.
So I tell a story about mine. I think I've told it before, but like a year or two ago, I was really scared that I was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was pretty frightened because I didn't really remember the last time I didn't have a drink. Oh. And it was a while, and you know, some stuff divorce, all that kind of things were happening, and so the stigma in my head too was like, I'm gonna stop because the only way I'm gonna find out if I am is if I don't.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm out for a while. For just didn't put a day on it or anything like that, but so that first week I was really nervous. Because
like, oh God,
like, am I going to start like having physical repercussions, you know, but that's again, moronic brain, right? Thinking like, you know, like I'm going to start having physical repercussions from doing this. Yeah. And I didn't. And then I got like a breath of fresh air. I was like, oh, I can like not do
not
this.
An alcoholic.
And everything kind of got better. I was like, I'm sleeping better. I'm waking up better. I'm like, everything just got a little bit better as time ticked on.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, how long were you in the fight?
I mean, so it was like off and on, and I say off and on because I had 2 kids in between, like stints, I guess you could say. But I started drinking probably around 15, 16. And then I went straight to cocaine right at 17, you know, marijuana, all that, high school kind of shit. And then went straight into cocaine and then ecstasy and then pressed meth. And it just kind of was like, I was very naive. I didn't know, you know, someone was like, oh, this is ecstasy. And I'm like, I was like really scared at first. I remember laying down on the couch, like, and I was like, I'm so scared. How is it going to hit? Am I going to die? Am I going to die? And like, I remember as soon as it hit, I just like sat up, almost like levitated and was like, let's go. Yeah. You know? And like in that moment was when I was like, I want to feel like this all the time, all the time. Like no anxiety, nothing, just totally free from everything.
Yeah. So you said pressed meth. What is that?
So from what I saw, you know, it's like those like triple stack green aliens and like blue dolphins and shit like that. I guess what it is just pressed meth. I never really got into it. I guess they grind it up. I don't know. Does anyone have any idea?
I've never heard of it.
It's just, from my understanding, which people are probably going to come at me, it's just ground up meth, maybe some MDMA in there.
Put it in a pill form? Put it
in a pill form with a pretty little dolphin on it or a green alien or, you know, all these crazy names.
So is it just ecstasy? Just like meth-based
yeah, there's
ecstasy?
Like meth-based ecstasy. I think it was more meth than the MDMA kind of shit in there, but I never really asked questions. It was only when...
just give it to me.
Never asked questions. It was only when, you know, one of my friends, I was like, we should get some more of like the ecstasy. And she's like, it's not fucking ecstasy. And I was like, well, I would never do anything else. And she's like, but you did you did meth.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh. And then there was a heroin-based one. That was awful. That was terrible. Terrible. Yeah. I knew in that moment, like I never wanted to do heroin again.
They all made you do different. They all made you feel different things.
Oh, yeah.
And see different things.
That one, I was sick as a fucking dog. Yeah. I remember being at my like wannabe drug dealer boyfriend, like his house, and his mom did not speak a lick of English. And I am vomiting all over her house, and like he's got me in the shower and like running a cold shower, screaming at me, and I was like, I'm dying. And then I don't know what happened, but I woke up and was like, never doing that one again. Where's the other ones?
Yeah.
Not that.
Yeah, just not that one.
Yeah.
Check that one off the list. So you said about 16, you were in the fight up until about 6 years ago.
So I think it was 25 when I got sober.
Okay.
And I think, I made it that long. Like, it wasn't until I hit 16 that I really started to explore things, because I was a competitive gymnast growing up. Very strict, very, like, just structure, discipline.
Regimen.
Yeah, like, you if you don't follow directions, then you're running for the entire practice. And I was like, you got me fucked up.
Yeah.
I ain't doing that. And then, I was also adopted, too, and I have the best parents ever. But it's like, I always had that, like, I want to be good enough kind of thing. Like, it started at such a young age. Like, I already didn't feel good enough because my birth mother gave me up for adoption and then went MIA, disappeared until I found her at 25. And so it was like, I needed to behave. I needed to do what I needed to do for my parents and for gymnastics. I had to succeed. And if I didn't, I always felt that no one was ever going to want me. So once I hit 16, I had an injury and I ended up quitting gymnastics because when you're 15, 16, that you're old in gymnastics. And I'm like, so by the time I came back, it just was like, it's pointless. And I just was exhausted from it. I've been competing since I was 6. So I was like, I'm just done. And then I went from a Catholic school to public school. Up in Maine is where I'm from.
Okay.
And the only thing that you do in Maine is you hunt, you drink, and you swim. And you can only swim a couple months out of the year. So
about to say,
you're hunting and you're drinking. And we would always have like bonfires in the forest. Like, no one's going to find you. And so it was in that moment where I got just lit. First time I ever drank, and like it just took off. And then went all the way into like, it was pretty quick. Once I moved down here is when it really took off.
When you move here?
Right when I turned 16, me and my dad had moved down here because we were relocating. All my family is still up there. My brother is. But I was having a lot of issues with my mom during this time. So she sent me down here with my dad, probably a month after I turned 16, and he worked nights. He worked the night shift. So I was like, golden, and that's when the drinking, the marijuana, it really took off. And then about 17 is when 17, 18 is when I went deep into any pill, drinking, just partying, always partying.
Yeah. And was there a point where you realized that you had a problem?
I think so. It's funny because I know I drank differently, but like all through high school when I was drinking, like when, I went to Manor High School when I first moved down here. And I was drinking with them, I was smoking weed, everything was cool. And it wasn't until I didn't know that, there's like this issue with darker skinned black girls and lighter skinned black girls. I'm coming from Maine.
Yeah.
There's no black people. I'm like,
right.
Oh, the black people, I get to be friends with them finally.
Yeah.
And I just remember being so drunk at junior year homecoming. And I ended up getting jumped by 4 black girls that were darker than me. And we were friends. And I was like, I don't know what's happening. And they beat the dog crap out of me. Like, they just beat me. And I remember them saying, you yellow bones always take our men. Oof. And I was like, whose man was I taking? At that point, I liked a girl.
Yeah.
I don't even like girls. I was like, I think I'm a lesbian. Yeah. And like, I liked her. But I was like, then I really thought about it. And I was like, God, what a wild time. And so when I moved over to McNeil High School, my senior year, it's where I met one of your guests, Black Rob.
Yeah.
And he was actually my high school drug dealer.
I was just about to mention him because he had a very similar tale to yours, like on here.
Yeah, we have like that same kind of like, I I always wanted to like fit in with the white people, and I always thought I'd like the white people. And I hate saying that, but at the same time, it's like I always, for a long time, I didn't even know I was black. Yeah. It wasn't until like I started seeing things and people started saying things, and that's when I was like, wait, what? Because my parents are white.
Yeah.
So, me and him kind of had the same situation where in the beginning, I just acted like a white girl.
Yeah,
You're the whitest black person I've ever met. And I'm like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to fit in with the black people and they didn't want me. And so I was like, all right. And so when I went over to McNeil, I kind of got a little bit of both worlds where it was like, I was hanging out with some black people and I was hanging out with some white people, and it was like they partied together. And so for me, it was great. I was like, okay, I can stay here in this bubble. And I was dating this guy in high school who was really good friends with Rob, and they used to like throw these parties. I don't even know what they called themselves. It was like this like little group
at an apartment.
Yeah,
yeah. He was talking about the apartment.
Well, and like people would like pay them to throw parties, and because I was dating his friend, it was easy for me to just stay drunk. Yeah, party. It was like that's what we do, and it's. For some reason, like, God, I was fucking so wild, just ridiculous. But all through high school, like all through that year, I partied heavy with Rob and with that group, and I could hide in it, and I could do just like crazy things. And it was like, oh, that's just Becca. Like I remember in high school, I would get so drunk and then just like take my shirt off and like flash people. Which like I don't really remember doing that, but I know that I did it because it was always brought up.
Yeah.
And that's when, Rob likes to remind me when I did not have anything. Because I got a breast augmentation in my 20s. But, so it's like for a long time that was like kind of embarrassing for me.
Yeah.
But it was one of those like, well, I'm just going to laugh about it. It's easier if I laugh, so then everyone else can laugh. And I think it just made me feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. Like somewhat comfortable with knowing that I did that. I was like, oh, that's just Becca.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then Robert, I remember, when he started getting into like the heavier drugs, and there was one time it was me and some friends, and I was in the car behind him. This is when I was like, things are starting to get kind of sketchy here. But he needed to go and drop off like a shit ton of weed to Robert, and we were seniors. And so Robert didn't answer the door. And so we were like, well, we got to get to school. Can't be late. And so he's pulling into the parking lot, and like almost like senior year is almost over. You see him pull in, and all of a sudden you see Drug Dog walk out. Oh. And we were like, no. And I wasn't in that car. So I was like,
yeah.
But it was kind of like in those kind of moments where I was like, it's a little sketchy.
Yeah.
But that didn't stop me.
Right.
I was like, well, I didn't get caught.
Yeah, I was lucky.
Right. Yeah, like I was lucky. I didn't get caught.
God protected me right there.
What? Yeah, like
that's how I always felt.
Well, and I was like, fuck him. I don't even like him. So whatever. Like, I'm good. I graduated. Yeah, I was like. Plus, I was like, mommy and daddy's gonna bail you out, so fuck off.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So it wasn't until, like 18, 19, well, mainly 18, where I was like, something might be a little bit off here. Yeah. And I think it wasn't until I came down that I was this emotional disaster.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, what's going on? I think you're like just crazy. You're bipolar. You're depressed. You're this. And I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, no, Mom, I've been high for the last fucking 2 years of my life, and I don't know how to tell you.
Yeah.
Because once again, it kind of falls back into that, like, I need to be successful. Mm-hmm. Like, you cannot know this about me.
I don't want to let you down.
Yeah, I don't want to let you down. I don't want you to not love me. I don't want to feel unwanted. Mm-hmm. And it always stems from that 5-year-old girl in me who wrote this letter to my birth mom, and it was a very close adoption, so I never got a response. And I had looked for her multiple times throughout the years. And my parents kind of knew the outcome, But it was one of those, like, she's going to have to go through it. And so I didn't want to show her, like, I'm this drug addict. Like, what, she's not going to want me. So I got to, like, just be like, yeah, I'm depressed. It's so weird.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't until I got pregnant at 19 I was in beauty school. And I met my father, or not my father.
Yeah, that's
not me, my father.
Weird.
Wait a minute.
That's
no. My boy's dad, my 2 boys' dad. And like, he just was like the love of my life. But I met him at a bar, and kind of like what you were talking about, I was like, I need to prove to myself that I'm not a drug addict and that I'm not an alcoholic. And so when I went out, I was like, I'm only drinking beer. Mind you, this is at Fort Hood. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
And so I stuck to it. I only drank beer, and I met this guy, and I was like, he just loves me, and I love him. Like, this is incredible. Love at first sight, right? I like fucking 19 years old.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out, like, am I a drug addict? What's happening? Am I just depressed? Like,
yeah.
Just losing it.
Trauma bonding type stuff.
Oh God, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. That entire relationship was I want to say that I was at the lowest of the low. But really I was not at the lowest of the low until probably this entire last year. So year 4 to 5, I was at like my lowest. But
while you were sober.
While I was sober.
Right.
Wow.
While I was stone cold sober, I had 4 years, and I was, I was ready to put a bullet in my head. I just couldn't do it anymore. But yeah, I thought in that relationship, he was going to save me. And I remember I remember when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, my mom's going to kill me. She's going to kill me. I can't do this. Like, oh my God, what? And I called her at work, and I was like, I need to talk to you. And I went to the doctor, and I was like, just need birth control. She's like, actually, joke's on you, bitch.
Yeah.
No birth control. You're pregnant.
Yeah.
I was like, ugh. And so, I went to my mom's work and sat down. I started crying, and she's like, you're pregnant. And I was like, how did you know? She's like, well, I take your trash out in your bathroom, Becca.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, it's so crazy. But yeah, you're not wrong. Like, yes. And I remember her telling me, like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. God's going to take care of it, and it'll work out. And it did. I mean, I stayed sober throughout that entire thing. And, I was like, okay, I have the husband, and I have a baby on the way, and I'm 19, and we have a house, and like, this is it. And it went downhill so quickly. I hated being pregnant. I love my kids to death, but I hated being pregnant.
Yeah. Like I had COVID, so I know what it's like to be pregnant. And, so I know that it sucks when I feel like I have a cough. So I can't imagine, I get, that's all I'm saying.
No, I totally, that man cold just,
I totally
terrible.
get it.
It's just awful.
No, like, man, I have 2 kids. I watched pregnancy twice.
Yeah. So
and that is some rough shit.
It's rough.
Yeah.
And with that pregnancy, I became depressed in the beginning, like very quickly in, but I was like, this is normal, right? Until my mom was like, this is not normal. And so I went to the OBGYN. I was like, yeah, I'm really depressed. Put me on Prozac. And then a couple months later, I was like, it's not working. He's like, I'm going to need to refer you to a psychiatrist. And I was like, it's working great.
Okay.
It's working great.
Yeah, it's fine. It's cool.
I was like, it's fine.
We're all
I was
good.
like, I am not
Must
crazy.
have been time released.
Yeah, I was like, it's so weird. I just need some sunlight. It's fine. Because I did not want to go see a psychiatrist. I was like, I'm not crazy. Like, absolutely not.
Probably knowing that you might have been.
What?
Probably knowing that you might have been.
Yeah.
Like that was what you were just scared to go see it.
Yeah, I knew that I was definitely losing it. I knew there was definitely something wrong.
Yeah.
But I refused to be anything like my birth mother.
Just didn't want to hear it.
Didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear any of that, but I was excited to start drinking again.
Okay.
That's all that was kind of in my head.
You were looking forward to.
Yeah. I was like, I have this house. I have, this husband, I have this baby, and then I get to start drinking.
Housewife.
Yeah.
Housewife, just a whiny housewife.
Yeah.
Just to drink wine all day.
Yeah, I wanted to. Unfortunately, it was not. I wish it was like that.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, when I gave birth to my oldest, at first I was like, I don't know if I love him. But then I held him and I was like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, I just was in just such awe of it. But I also remember thinking, like, I don't want to fuck him up.
Yeah.
But within the first week after I gave birth, he was already at my mom's and I was back to drinking. We were throwing house parties. And I remember I was going around down on 6th Street and I was like, I'm a mom. I'm a new mom. Like, it was so cringy. But like, I really thought, that I was doing it. I was doing the thing. And then, it just continued. It just continued every weekend. We were having house parties every weekend. We were getting drunk every weekend. I mean, it just was this nightmare that never ended. Honestly, I don't even know if I wanted it to end. Though.
Yeah.
Because like I didn't want to like wake up from that. I didn't want to get to the place of where I'm looking at like what my life has come to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were going to say something about you going to a psychiatrist?
I didn't go to one until I was 43 because I didn't want to go see one. I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I don't have no problem.
Yeah.
Like even in sobriety, when people were saying, you need to go see a therapist. And I'm like, for what? I mean, I'm not fucked up. And they're like, no, yeah, you still are.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep, right.
I remember our supervisor caught me in a lie. And he didn't catch me in a lie. I lied to his face. I walked out of his office. Then, Honest Program kicked in.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, fuck, I got to tell him I lied. So I turned back in. I walked in. I said, hey, I just lied right to your face. And I apologize. And he said, see, it wasn't the drugs that were fucking you up. You're just a fuck up. Like, it's you. And I was like, yeah, I've been trying to tell you that. I never blamed it on the drugs. I always knew, like, that was... So, yeah, I didn't go see a therapist, I think, because, especially for guys, it's we're too tough for that. We're macho. I don't need to sit down on the couch and talk to a woman about my feelings or a guy about my feelings.
Right.
But as I got deeper in the program and I got around other people that had sobriety that I wanted, they all said they go to a therapist.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? And they were like, yeah, that's a tool in your tool bag that you should absolutely use. So I started going to a therapist.
How's it going?
Well, I don't go anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you fucking ruined it back at gosh damn it.
Listen.
Just kidding. Now, she actually helped me start this podcast.
Really?
She's the
did.
reason.
See?
She's the reason.
It's phenomenal.
Her and Destiny are the two that pushed me to do this.
Look.
Because I talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. And she's like, what is stopping you? Like, you talk about all these big dreams, but you ain't doing shit. You're not doing any of them. And I was like, well, I'm sober. And she said, is that all you want in life?
Ugh.
And I'm like, no. And so she had me write down a list of, all my fears, because it was just based off of fear. Like, what are you scared of? Well, I'm scared of this not working, or people not coming on, or this. So we wrote everything down. And then she said, now let's pretend like all that bad shit happened. Now you got to get out of it. How are you going to fix it? Like, your cameras don't work. How are you going to make it work? Your microphones go down. How are you going to make it work? And we did a whole list of how we're going to make it work, even if this happens. And she was like, now you're ready to get the podcast going. And that's what,
Yeah.
So I stopped going to her because she's pretty expensive.
I'm not. It is so freaking expensive.
$400 a session. That's what mine costs.
I finally
That's a
got
lot.
insurance through my job, but I'm still paying $1,000 a month in insurance.
Yeah.
And then co-pays. But it's kind of one of those things where it's like, it became a very crucial part for me, especially during, these marriages that I had. It became very crucial. I noticed that, when I was in a marriage in therapy, I felt safe, somewhat kind of safe. Like I could share this with this person.
Yeah.
But whenever I was not in a relationship, I was like, I don't need therapy.
Right.
Fuck, I need therapy for. I'm good. So I feel like I go through that in my brain too, where I'm just like, I mean, do I really need it? Is it really that necessary?
I definitely go through it, as a normie guy.
Yeah.
Like I do it myself. And I had this thought the other day because I noticed, and Sean talked about it, you've talked about it. I'm a crier now. That didn't start happening until like probably 38.
Because we got older.
And so the thought is like, I've joked about me crying when like Iron Man dies and shit and the Marvel movies, like things that would have never normally made me cry in the past are now making me cry, like, down to commercials and like shit like that. It's fucking wild. Not
Are
like
you going through menopause?
Not like boo-hooing crying, but like a sad commercial will like, it'll make me well up.
Pulls on the heart.
Yeah, but it'll pull on them. I was like, maybe this is just the years of suppressing like all the fucking times where I was afraid that my brother was going to say I wanted to suck a dick because I'm feeling sensitive. Am
I ignoring? Did I admit?
Yeah. So no. My brother would suggest that I would because I'm starting to feel a certain way.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait.
So it's like, you grow up with brothers. It's fucking brutal. Like,
sorry, brother. I had a brother.
Yeah,
I did.
It's
or I have a brother.
But for dudes, it's like you don't feel shit. You fucking pussy. Like push it down. So then I was thinking about this when something made me well up, and I was like, probably should go to therapy. I probably would help. There's something abnormal. I mean, it's okay to cry. I get that now.
Which
not
is
embarrassed about it. Yeah, I've done it a handful of times on this podcast, but it was warranted. I feel like every time that went down.
Yeah.
And then, but now it's like,
when
I'm watching
ASPCA.
Yeah, when I hear a Sarah McLachlan song in the fucking background, I'm like,
immediately like mute that bitch.
I'm like, God, here we go.
Here we go.
So yeah, I mean, therapy is it's a motherfucker. There's fears behind going there.
Yeah.
I mean, making yourself vulnerable and open but you got to do it. Like, I mean, I think I would argue maybe everybody.
I think every single person could benefit.
I think so too.
I think one of the hardest parts for me with therapy was like finding the right therapist.
Sure.
Right? Because it's like I have to go in. Essentially, it's like I'm going in and like interviewing this person while they're interviewing me.
Yeah.
And I've gone to some therapists where I'm like, how the fuck do you have a license?
Yeah.
Like, or then like you're like spilling shit and they're like, what do you think about that? Bitch, what?
Yeah.
How do you feel? I'm done. Get me up. Get me out.
Yeah.
Get me out. Where's the psychiatrist finally? Like, I don't have to talk to them at least. They just give me shit.
Yeah.
God. Just freaking ridiculous. So I think, I wish that therapy would be more accessible, financial wise and like not this like scary thing. And like, I feel like some therapists will like, they contradict each other, right? Like I've gone to a few different therapists and they're like, oh, that's what this one said. Well, I think. And I'm like, yeah, fuck your thought.
Yeah.
Like I liked her. I'm going back.
Yeah.
And I think, with sobriety, like I wish that I could raw dog it without therapy.
Yeah.
I wish I could. I mean, I see people doing it all the time.
Yeah.
That whole like white knuckling.
Yeah, but they
I just
don't.
say raw dog. Like,
but they don't. I was just about to make that point. They don't. Like, I mean, when you guys go to rooms, I've been in them now, and I gain something from those rooms, right? Like, and I don't have a problem. I show up initially to support my buddy.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'm walking out of there going, whoa, so I've always called it like it's a strange blend between like church and therapy.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a very like commingling thing.
Right. It's just something that's like, huh.
Yeah.
Like, you guys ever have those things where like you're just like, huh. Like that's all you can say.
Yeah.
So when they showed up for my 3-year chip, he came and our boss came, our old boss, the one that fired me 4 times. He came to see me get it.
Fair.
And he sent me a text the next day. He had never been in a room before, right? He sent me a text the next day and he said, "Thank you so much for bringing me into, showing me a piece of your world.
That's so
He said, I walked out of there last night and I was worried about the guy that was going back to sober living. Like, did he make it back? Or did he go use? Or the guy that said he had nowhere to live. Like, he was listening to people's shares. And I think it made him appreciate his life so much. Like, here I am going to a big house, a family, kids. I have everything made for, a lot of things made for me, right? And this person doesn't even know where he's going to sleep tonight.
Right.
Or he said, and he mentioned, like, did the newcomer get someone's phone number so he can reach out to him? And it made me remember that I got 2 people's phone numbers that night. Then I need to reach out too, because that's one of my commitments this year. Is I get a lot of people's phone numbers and I give a lot of phone numbers,
But you don't actually.
but I don't check up on. I'll do it for like a week, and then I fall off.
You're better than me.
And that's something. that's
I
something
get it, and I'm
I'm
like,
trying to change this year is just reaching out to people, because you just never know, you know.
Right.
And but yeah, it was really neat to hear him say, like, he got something from that, where he just thought he was going to come watch me get a chip and then bounce and say congratulations. But you know, it was really neat for him to say that. And then you know, he's been to so many of them now, like he picks up on things. Like, it's funny because when I go to meetings, people are like, "Where's Moron? Where's Moron?" Because they see him from this.
I'd be like, he's not even one of us.
Well, that's my fear. That's why I don't go as much, because I'm scared that I'm going to be like intruding on this
I
thing.
think
You know,
it is incredible for people who aren't, you know, who don't have the addiction, not the addiction gene, but like who can put it down.
yeah.
Because, you know, for the people who can't, in other people's brains, it's like, why can't they? Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You know, or it's like this stigma of like, oh, you're a drug addict. Like, you know, like it's such a shitty thing.
Yeah.
When in reality, you know, you come to these meetings and like there are, you know, you have people who grew up very poor in a family of addiction, you know, very like sad circumstances where it's kind of like, how the hell did you get out of that?
Yeah.
Right. All the way up to, I've been in meetings with police officers, with doctors, lawyers, and it's like, it's crazy to see us all come together and treat each other the same.
Yeah. Everybody's on an even playing field in those rooms.
Yeah. And so
It's a beautiful thing.
Someone who, you know, like in the real world, you would be like, oh, that's a drug addict, and like that's a doctor. They have nothing in common.
Right.
So for someone to come in and see that, it's like, you know, we're like, holy shit. Like,
Yeah.
one of those things. Like, who knew that this is what it's about? Because I too was like, I am not a drug addict. I am not like that. I do not do IV. I do not have an OnlyFans. I've never done XYZ. Like, listen, over the last year though, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm like, as I'm scrolling TikTok and I see those like big OnlyFans content creators, and I'm like,
you're like, I can wiggle some toes on a camera or something.
I can fart in a box.
I literally could. I mean, at this point, I'm doing weird shit for free. Like, I'd be cool with some subscribers. Like, pay my little grocery bill. You know, like, Jesus. That's where, you know. So, but I think, you know, it is a beautiful thing to see so many different people come together and to see, like, I love when I'm seeing someone get a chip and their family is there.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, like that is such like a beautiful thing for like just to see. And I think because it's also, you know, I worked in treatment for like a year and a half. I think I was like 6 months all the way to, I was almost 2 years when I had left. And the hardest part was, I mean, honestly, I want to say it was like the family. And it was, but it was also, I mean, it was the dynamic. It's like, you are loving this child to death. Take your hands off from it. You're loving them to death. Step away. And with the addict, it's like, shut up and look at what you're doing. Like, you know, your family, and maybe it was a little bit of jealousy because I didn't go to treatment. You know, I didn't get the opportunity. I told my mom, I was like, I want to go to treatment. And she's like, fucking get sober or get out of my house.
Yeah.
I will keep these kids, and you know I will win. And so I was like, well, I want to go to treatment. I was like, I want a vacation from these fucking kids. Like, I want to get sober in peace. But so like when I would see that, it was frustrating where I'm like, your family is paying all this fucking money for you to be here, and you get a meal, you get a nice bed, you get group sessions, and all of a sudden now you're a fucking dick. Like to your family.
Yeah.
But at the same, it's like watching that dynamic and trying to find, like, be the middle is so frustrating, and it was very hard. And I'm super like an empath. You know, I take on people's feelings, and so when a mom would be crying, I'm like taking it on, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I'm so sorry. I'm not doing my job right because they're not staying sober. Like, I don't know.
Right.
But then the addict, I'm like, what can I do to like make you stay sober?
Yeah.
And it's not being able to have that control. Just blew. I mean, it got to where I was just not a good fit for treatment. I was not a good fit. But I love when I go into the rooms and I see family members there watching their child get a chip or watching their mom get a chip. My oldest son has given me one of my chips before. And it is awesome. Like, right? I'm like, it is the coolest thing. You know?
Well, I think it's kind of like the family's getting a chip too.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, you really are.
They went through that shit with you. They should be fucking picking one up too. You know?
Right? It's like, and you know, with like that long-term sobriety, like, you don't have to have the family to do it, right? But like when the family is there, it is a group effort. The family has to stop enabling you, and you have to stop relying on them. And so to be able to find that middle and then see the entire group show up as a support it's so beautiful to me. And like I never thought that I would be like.
Well, you also know the road, like people like yourselves.
Yeah.
You know the road that it took to find that middle to where they're in the room getting that chip. Yeah. So I think that probably impacts people like yourselves a lot more in that situation.
Definitely opened up my eyes for like mine and my mom's relationship.
Yeah.
Where we are so codependent. I mean, like unhealthy. It's gotten a lot better over the last probably like two years, but like my entire life, we have been extremely codependent, very enmeshed. And so trying to break that dynamic has probably been one of the hardest things that I've ever tried to do. And it's taken a lot of therapy, like it just individually.
Oh, really?
Right. And like, she's been willing to go to it with me, but at the end of the day, I kind of look at it as, you know, when you get to like that age, she's going to be 71. Like she's in her ways. Like there is no changing her. Yeah. She's very strong-willed. Shocking. But like that woman she's one of the strongest people I know. And I feel like everyone says that about their mom. But like she really,
you know what it was like to be pregnant?
Yeah. Well, here's the crazy thing. Cause I'm adopted. Like she didn't even carry me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She didn't even carry me. So like,
I forgot. I'm sorry about that.
Right? No. It's fine. Whenever people were like, oh, your mom's white, is your dad black? I'm like, no, she cheated on my dad. Just kidding. Because then my dad walks in and I'm like, just kidding. Yes, I do. And I have to tell her, I'm like, hey, mom, the person over there thinks that you cheated on dad. And she's like, back up. But like, you know, watching her go from, she was in a very abusive marriage around my age when I got married. Physically, emotionally, and she just left. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit, how do you do that? You know? And that's like back in the 70s, like women couldn't even buy houses. Yeah, like they couldn't even buy houses without a man. Yeah. And she was like, fuck you, I don't need you. And I'm like, why did I get that, Jean? Yeah. Like, why did I get that? You know, but her parents died at a young age and she couldn't have kids, you know, and so like seeing how strong and incredible she is, I mean, it's crazy to me. And so like that, she's really helped me with that, but like that dynamic has made me, and then with being adopted, like I need to feel wanted by her. And she was not always, she's gotten a lot better, but she was not always the most affectionate mom. And I don't blame her. It's just, I think it's that generation. you know, like they're just not. I'm super affectionate with my kids. I'm like, oh my God, I love you. Come cuddle me. And she wasn't like that. And, you know, I used to be resentful against it, but now I'm like, I get it.
It's just, I mean, some people are just that way.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I mean, to your point, you probably are as affectionate to your kids because she wasn't maybe a little bit, you know what I mean?
Then I'm overly affectionate to compensate.
Right.
For what? And I've done that in sobriety with my mothering. Like I was overcompensating for neglecting them in my addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is
Trying to make up for lost
yes. And it is the hardest thing to break. It is the hardest thing that I've ever had to break.
Yeah.
And, you know, honestly, I think there's many things. I thought like getting sober was the hardest thing I was ever going to have to do. Mm-hmm. And it's actually what I have to do while I'm sober that I'm like, that was the easiest part. Yeah. Like, holy shit.
Well,
just stay sober is the
JB
hard
said
part.
it. So we had a guest on last week. His episode's out. We love him. But he said it perfectly. He's like, do you want to be sober or do you want to be recovered?
Yeah.
There's two different things.
And I've been both. In recovery. Like I have been where I'm like, I am just sober.
Yeah.
And this is horrible.
Yeah.
This is the worst feeling ever. I don't like and it's hard because it's like, I know I don't want to get high. I mean, well,
yeah.
There's been times where I'm like,
sort
this
of.
would feel so good. But like what I'm thinking of is like, yeah, you know, I'm gonna get fucked up. Like my first thing I think would be drinking because I'm like that's socially acceptable.
Right.
I truly believe that I could maybe go a year with being like a little wino mom, being like, oh, I don't need another one.
Yeah.
But I would set myself up and be like, if I can get to this point, like I'm good. I'm in the clear. I'm not an alcoholic. But it's like, what am I? I'm going to wake up from this god awful hangover.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to have to take care of 2-3 shitheads.
Yeah.
Kids like that I love to death, but like doing it hungover.
Yeah.
Like, and then that's where I'm like, nah, gotta get the Adderall.
Yeah.
Like, and what's crazy is like, Adderall is what brought me to my knees. Out of all the drugs, Adderall is the one that like, that was the one that, because it was socially acceptable. I prescribed it.
I'm scared of it.
I wish I was. I think, when I was first prescribed Ritalin. And I remember, you know, the doctor, it was right after I got out of the psych ward because, you know, my first marriage was very abusive. Both sides. I ended up going to jail twice for it, which caused like some trauma with cops, obviously trauma with men. There was a lot of cheating, walked in on it, you know, like that kind of shit. But Adderall, I had gone to the psych ward because I took too much Ambien and overdosed.
Dude, I've heard some wild fucking stories on Ambien.
That shit is incredible. It's an incredible drug. Okay, whoever created it, someone was like, we need a medication that's going to knock them out mentally. Yeah. Physically, we don't give a fuck. Mentally, they just got to be out.
Away.
So, like, I remember I was thanking my ex-husband, my first ex-husband. I was like, you've been cleaning the house. Like, thank you for helping me. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And
you were doing it on Ambien?
Yeah. Like 2 a.m. I was cleaning. And there were times where, like, you know, I was walking the dog or I was driving to the store. And I'm like, holy shit. Don't remember a thing. Do not remember a thing. So, I felt like I got a great night's sleep.
Kevin James, he's a comedian and actor. He tells a story about being on Ambien where he woke up from doing Ambien and he was like, there was a fucking Thanksgiving feast like on the table. And he was like, he called his wife and was like, hey, who did you hire to come into the house while we were asleep to cook fucking turkeys and shit? And she's like, no, I didn't do that. He had to like reverse engineer the Ambien and figure out and use cameras and shit in his house to see him blacked out on Ambien cooking a whole entire organized feast. It's fucking insane.
Crazy.
Chastity's mom fell off of a balcony.
Yeah. Well, see, and that's where it fucked me up, you know. And I supposedly was. I mean, they count it as a suicide attempt, but I also am like, I really just wanted to genuinely be a star in the sky. Mm-hmm. I know. I'm like, could you like just. When I was telling the doctors this, they started handing me like AA pamphlets and like rehab pamphlets. And I was like, fuck you guys. Yeah. But like I was drinking on it and I was on Ritalin because I remember that psychiatrist, she was like, I was on Zoloft, libido gone, right? I got a husband who enjoys cheating. My libido's gone. We got to fix something here. And so she was like, I'm sending in a prescription. Do not share it with anyone. And I was like, okay, do I need an ID to get it? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, solid, I'm never sharing this.
Yeah.
What is it? And I didn't know anything about like Ritalin, Adderall, none of that. And so it was one of those moments again where like I took it and I was sitting on the couch and it was like I got up and I was like, game on. Yeah. This is incredible.
Yeah.
And so that day I had taken a shit ton of Ritalin. I had dropped my son off again on the weekend with my parents. Driving home, listen to T Swift. What's that album?
Nice.
22?
Hey.
20, is that the album?
Yeah.
No, Speak Now.
Okay.
Yeah. My little Ford Escape.
Yeah.
You know? And I got home, started drinking vodka Crystal Light. It's my favorite go-to drink. Mm-hmm. And was outside watching the stars. And I got this idea in my head. I like vividly remember it.
So you were literally trying to be a star.
Trying to be like, I remember I was, they were having like a house party inside, all the Army guys, and I'm outside just staring at the stars in good old Killeen, Texas. And I'm like, I want to be a fucking
You don't
star.
want to be a star over Killeen, Texas ever in your
right?
life.
Well, see, in my mind, I was like, I'm going to be a star. And I'm just going to shoot around.
Yeah, okay. Then I'm going to go over to Austin.
Yeah, and I was like, and then I'm going to come back to the ground and just like complete ridiculousness. And then, I had a brief moment where I was like, girl, you better go to bed. But I need to take my Ambien.
Oh,
Took an Ambien and I was like, wait a minute. I know how to be a star in the sky. And I took, I want to say 20 of them.
Oh,
I was like, this is, and I remember my ex-husband and his friend, and like, I'm sitting there like stuffing them in my mouth like a psychopath. And they were watching me and they were like, is that your Ambien? I was like, yep. And then I know my ex-husband chased me around the house and my shirt got ripped off and I took off the street. I took out the garage, went down the street, half naked. And next thing you know, I remember lights behind me, half naked, side of the street, Killeen, Texas, 2 a.m. And officers had, I guess, told me that I needed to stay there. And I didn't. I watched the they gave me like camera footage of what I did. And I turned around and I said, bet you can't catch me. And I slow-mo started walking, like running, like full on, like, and they're standing there moving like normal time, but I'm literally half naked, side of the road in Killeen, 4 officers behind me. And I'm like, just slow-mo running. And like they tried to get me and I mean not tried to, it wasn't that hard.
Yeah, you were going slow motion.
Yeah, I was like, and I started resisting and they tackled me on the ground. And then, next thing I know, I wake up in the hospital. I was like, this is not jail. This is not where I want to be. I'd rather be in jail. And I was hooked up to all this shit and I went to go and move my arm and there's a cuff on my arm. And I was like, look in front of me. There's an officer. And he was like, don't even do it. And I was like, do what? Don't try to get your wrist out. And I was like, hell, never. Boop! Got my wrist out. What are you going to do? And they ended up having to restrain me. And the doctor came in and the nurse was like, they're going to take you if you don't stop. And I was like, take me, bitch. Like just so fighting against everything. And I still didn't think anything was wrong. I was like, I literally was trying to be a star in the fucking sky, guys. Like, this was not suicide.
Yeah.
Like, please believe me. Like, please believe the crackhead that overdosed on Ambien, that slow-mo ran from police. Just believe me.
Yeah.
Like, what? And yeah, like the audacity. It's very audacious of you guys to be acting better than. But the doctor had told me that, with the Ritalin and the Ambien, as soon as they would adjust my heart rate and it would either skyrocket or drop. And just full on slow-mo, just everywhere. And
need to make that a cartoon.
I'm telling you.
That would be a fucking phenomenal cartoon.
I saw that and was like, what the fuck? Like, tried to block it out of my brain for a while, but I'm like, you can't block that.
That's just something you just laugh about.
Yeah, no, at that point, it was like,
most
whatever.
Of my stories from addiction, I'm not ashamed of them. I just laugh about them. Because fucking, if I went through it, God put me through it for a fucking reason. If I can't make fun of myself, then what am I doing it? What did I do it for?
Right.
And if I can't get to the other end of it and then help someone else that's going through it, then that's what we went through it for.
Right. And I would say most of my story I can laugh. There's some parts, mainly, within the last year, but also when I had turned 25 and got sober, like how that happened. Though that one I've gotten a little bit better on, but like I still kind of tear up whenever I share my story. But I have not shared my story in well over a year. And so this last year has just been a fucking whirlwind. And there was some moments where I was like, how am I still sober? Mm-hmm. How am I still sober? There's no way. Like the self-centered person.
So what do you think it was contributed to? Or what did you find? Because you don't feel that way anymore.
No.
I remember we were in a meeting and you talked about this for a brief second.
Within the last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the last year, there was, divorce. Mm-hmm. There was psych ward. There was like the consistent feeling of I'm not good enough. I'm not wanted. 5-year-old little girl just kept showing up day in and day out and was controlling all of my emotions. So when I had met my soon-to-be ex-husband, God, I think I was just over 18 months. No, I was almost 2 years. Because it's when I had left working in treatment. And I think he had maybe 6 months, which I'm like, oh, very risky, Becca.
Yeah.
This doesn't look good. But if you were to ask me back then, like I was in love. Like I could look at him and be like, he sees me. He loves, like that. And that's where trauma bonding started.
Yeah.
Where it was just like a puppy dog. Like, I love you. I want to be with you forever. And within probably 2 months, so we're end of December, February is when I found out that I was pregnant with my third. And so here I am, I'd always wanted a third baby, but it was for selfish reasons. My middle son is autistic. And so I was like, I would like 2 on the other side of him, like 1 older and 1 younger. But I was not going to have another baby after 30. There was no way in hell. Because when I'm 40, I'm going to have a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. Fuck, I look like having a fucking 2-year-old. Now I'm going to have a fucking 11-year-old.
Yeah.
But I found out that I was pregnant, and he was so supportive and so loving and so caring. And, with my second pregnancy, that's when I left my first ex-husband. I had finally sobered up, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And I told him I was going to stay the night at my mom's, and I never went back. Just never went back. And I went through that whole pregnancy by myself. He moved to New York, so I've been raising these kids with my parents. Mm-hmm. And so within this divorce, with this relationship, he was so loving and supporting. And then, went through the pregnancy, got so depressed. Where I just was like, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. I hated him, but I didn't hate him. I absolutely hated myself. I wanted no part in it. And I think throughout that whole pregnancy, the scariest thing was knowing that a baby was not going to keep me sober. And I so badly wanted to stay sober for the first time I ever had a baby. And so I was like, what am I going to do? So having that in my brain is like, this baby's not going to keep me sober, but I want to stay sober for this baby, really got me into like this isolating, crippling anxiety mode where I just didn't really leave the house. And I fought with him, and, we really tried. We both really tried hard. And it wasn't until I had assaulted him. I've been told I was bipolar in the past, but I'm like, I'm actually just a drug addict, guys. Like, no, but I don't know what happened. Something triggered. We had just gotten home from a beautiful vacation. We went up to Boston and then into Maine, and I didn't tell any of my family because I just wanted just a quiet vacation. Yeah. And we got home really late, and it was all over chapstick. Chapstick. I needed my chapstick.
Yeah.
Like, and that's where like the anxiety OCD started coming in.
I don't know, man. Like I've heard so many stories like this.
Yeah.
Like,
it started over fucking
if
chapstick.
you can reverse engineer any horrible fight you ever had, the littlest, stupidest thing is what it started over.
It's the dumbest
chapstick.
Thing. Literally chapstick. And it was like, it's like that. It wasn't Carmex, okay?
That's
I'm not.
Fuck.
Yeah.
I fucking hate that.
Was it the egg?
No. Hate that one too.
Okay.
It was the little like blue pot one that's like, it's got like menthol in it, but like, I guess it's not big down here. I guess mainly like Carmex is big, which I'm like, ew. But it was that like blue pot one, and I remember he had it last. And so I wanted it, and I was like, do you have my chapstick? Like we just got home, our flight had been all fucked up, baby's asleep, he's laying in bed, and I'm like, hey, have you seen my chapstick? And he's like, no. And I was like, well, you were the one who used it last. He's like, I don't have your chapstick, I don't know where it is. And I was like, I need my chapstick. He's like, well, I have Carmex. And I was like, no.
I want your trash.
I don't want your shitty chapstick. I want my good shit. And I know you took it. And so I don't know. I mean, he was just so done with my fucking shenanigans. He's like, I don't have your fucking chapstick. And something just like flipped in my brain.
Yeah.
And like, I just zoned in on his face, and it became a big blur. Everything became a blur. There were moments where like, I know that I punched him in the face. Like he was laying there, and I just like decked him, and like I just couldn't stop. And it was the scariest thing because it's like, I know what I'm doing, but I can't stop, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like that complete disassociation. And then at some point I ended up calling the police on him, even though I was the one. And I think that I knew, because I know with my first one that even though I called the police because he had choked me out, he had a bloody nose. And so they still took me to jail.
Mm-hmm.
And so with this one, I was like, okay, first he said, I'm going to call the police. And I was like, nah, motherfucker, I'm calling them. And I remember breaking down on the phone to the police. I don't really know about what. But I knew that I was going to be the one going to jail. And I was okay with that because I just saved me from myself. Mm-hmm. Like I can't stop. And I'm stone cold sober. And so that's where I'm like, what's happening? And police came. I mean, and he's standing there because he's on papers. And he's standing there, arms up, lights are shining in. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what's happening? He's like, you stupid bitch, you called the police. And I was like, what? Oh, God, okay. And I looked at him, like, I finally saw him, and, like, it looked like he was attacked by a fucking chimpanzee. I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
Who did that? That's so crazy. And then Wilco determined that it was a mental health crisis, and I was highly offended. So offended that they were like, you're in a mental health crisis. And I was like, no, I'm not. What are you talking about? But I was. I mean, that was like the moment where I was like, something's seriously wrong. Kind of like back to where, you know, when I knew something was really wrong when I got sober. I was like, something's seriously wrong with me. And like coming to that rock bottom point. And so as time went on, you know, we tried to work through it. I don't know if he ever kind of worked through that, you know, and trying to that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's tough.
And at first I just was kind of like, why aren't you getting over it? Like, don't you understand? Like, I clearly have fucking mental health problems. But I also didn't realize, I didn't really see our dynamic until then. And it was very much I'm mentally losing it and he's the savior. And that was very consistent through our entire relationship until it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, a year goes by and we're planning this wedding and we planned it over a year. We like called it off I feel like every month. I remember there was one time, you know, we were fighting and I was doing the save the dates and he was like, you better save those dates for another day. And I was like, you fucking idiot. Fine. You know, and 2 days later we would make up and it was just this high and low and constant battle. And it was like, you're not working your program and you're not working your program and you didn't call your sponsor. And you didn't, you know, like that back and forth. And it just got to this point where we both were kind of done, but we still got married. And I think the hardest part was I truly loved him so deeply. But I also didn't think that I would be able to do any better for myself. Like I didn't think highly of myself. Super depressed, gained a lot of weight, miserable sober. I'm like, this is the best it's going to get. It's fighting with this man for the rest of my life. But I truly do love him and I'm willing to do that. And it wasn't,
Damn.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. But where it really took off was my parents had just left for a month, which they have been my rocks. Mm-hmm. They're the only ones down here that help with the kids drastically. And they were like, you know, we're retired. We're going to Australia for a month. And I'm already freaking out because the last big trip that they did was when it was right before I got sober. And that's when I finally was brought to my knees. They were on a trip. They went on a cruise and I thought I could do it. I was high as fuck. And 2 days into it, the kids were late to school by like a good 45 minutes. And I was like, it's okay. It's fine. It's whatever. The next day they were late to school by an hour. I was like, oh, fuck, it's fine, whatever. And then I went out that night. And the next day, I did not wake up until probably 11:30, 12 in the afternoon. And my middle son, my autistic son, was still in his crib. And my oldest was 4, laying next to me on my phone. And I hear my son crying. And I was like, Jackson, why didn't you wake me up? Like my fucking 4-year-old. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, I tried to give Kelly some water, but it spilt all over him. And so I go in there, and that's when I was like, I don't think I can ever forgive myself for that, you know? And I felt like such a failure. Like I felt like such a failure. And that's when I kind of was like, okay, something's got to change. And that was the moment where I was like, I can't keep doing it to these kids, right? Like their dad is in New York, my parents are gone, and I left my 2-year-old, was he 2 at the time? He was 1 at the time, in the crib, no food, no, you know. And so that's where it was kind of like the low of the low. Because I think all I really wanted was to be nothing like my birth mother. And I felt in that moment, I was like, I am just like her. And so that's kind of one of the ones that I still like get emotional over. And I'm grateful that I like can see myself through it now. Right. Because in the beginning I was like, that's when I was like, am probably just going to kill myself, you know? Like, I can't, they would be better off. And I didn't think that I could ever forgive myself for that, or if they could forgive me. And so I called one of my clients for, I was a hairstylist, and she was one of my clients for 4 years. She'd been trying to convince me to come to her house on Friday nights. Like, oh, it's just a bunch of girls that get together. And I was like, no, I'm good. We're sober. I was like, yeah, fuck that. No. And so I called her and I was like, how do you do this whole sober thing? And she started crying. And I was like, bitch, you can't cry.
Yeah.
You can't cry.
Yeah. Then I'm going to cry. We're all crying.
We're all crying. But like, you're the one who's supposed to help me.
Yeah.
And so that's when, she had come over to my house and we sat down after my parents got back. We barely made it through. My parents got back and my mom looked at me and she was like, I will take your kids and I will win. And that's what I was like, she will win. And I love those kids with all my heart. And so thinking that, I wouldn't be able to be their mom, was like a really hard thing. And I knew that she was going to win.
Yeah.
So fast forward, to this last vacation where they went to Australia, I was like, I don't want to fuck it up for them. Like, I want them to enjoy it. I don't want them to have to worry about anything. And my ex-husband's mom came into town to help us. And about 3 days in, we got into a fight over my friend's cat that was staying at our house. And the next morning, we got into another fight. And he was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to go stay with my mom at your mom's house. And I'm like, but at first I was like, fine, fuck you. Because he'd always come back. We'd always come back together. And he hadn't come back. Mm-hmm. And so, the next day I went over there and I got into it heavy with his mom. I called her a fucking bitch. I was going in. And, that whole month, I didn't have anyone to help me with the kids. And, so I fucking figured it out. I don't know how, literally God. But each day was like, okay, how are we gonna, because I still have to go to work. Like, how am I gonna work? How am I gonna get the kids? How am I gonna do this? And we made it through. And, me and my ex were like, we can work on it. And I think we both kind of knew that, like, we're probably not gonna come back from this. But I think, we so badly wanted to. And when I look back now, it was really like the fear of the unknown. Like, who am I without you? You've been 4 years of my sobriety. Like, who am I without you? And then it wasn't until one day I was at work and we got into an argument and he called it quits through text. And I was like, okay. And that broke my heart. Because I think I so badly wanted that false hope to keep going, because I didn't want to feel unwanted. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't move back home with my mom because now I have 3 kids. She's like, I love you, but like,
yeah,
we can't, there's not enough room. And so trying to find a place to rent with 3 kids, single income, was, rent's like fucking $2,500 a month.
It's a lot.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't make that much. Like, what? And so I went into survival mode, and my mom was like, "Hey, there's this place, and it's got mobile homes in it." I was like, "I will never live in a trailer park. I will never live in a fucking trailer, Mom." Have you seen those things?
They're nice. They're dope.
We walked in, and I was
thought
like,
about buying one and moving one on some
I'm
land.
literally like, are we?
Yeah.
Like you've seen it, right? It's not bad.
It's nice. It's real nice.
Well,
Yeah.
she's probably gonna leave, and she's like,
Counters all
"Shit show." She'd be like, "Ugh."
No, she
No,
said
I
whenever
did.
she went there, she said her place is really, really nice.
Yeah, I did, and that was a big character building lesson for me.
The big thing that she said was that you were an amazing mom.
Stop.
That's what she said. She said, man, she's a really, really good mom.
See, and I hear that, but I never feel that. no matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, because I just constantly think that it's like those thoughts that come into your head. And I think that area of my life is where I will always be the hardest on myself, where I always feel like I'm failing. I'm not doing what they need. I'm a yeller. Okay.
We all struggle. I'm a dad.
Yeah.
And I know that a mom's love is different than a dad's love. That's why I remain friends with my ex-wife. But I think you need to start feeling that for yourself for no other reason than this. Parenting is fucking hard. And there's no two ways about it. No kid's a cookie cutter kid. You have multiples of them. But you keep getting up.
Right.
And you recognize the mistakes that you made because none of us are fucking perfect.
Well, and that aspect of, with my middle son being autistic,
Yeah.
and he was also born with the amniotic band syndrome. And so from like here down of his arm just didn't develop. So he just has a nub. Sometimes it's so in our family, we make jokes.
Yeah. One way to deal with
so
it.
we'll be like, Kelly, go wash your hand. Or I'll be like cutting his nails and I'm like, give me your other hand, go play.
Yeah.
Like, just kidding, buddy. Or like, when we're walking and he's like, I'm like, thanks, dude. And we're walking and I'm holding the nub and people are like, fuck. Right. But it's like that, you take that aspect into it too. And so I always feel like I'm giving him more attention than the other ones. And if I'm giving the other ones more attention, I'm not giving him enough. And it's like this constant, like, I feel like I'm not keeping up with all of them at the same time with what they need at the exact same time.
You're not.
I'm not. And
You're
I
not.
expect myself
You're totally not.
to be perfect.
No.
And so when people are like, you have so much going on, I'm like, no, not really. People are like, there's a lot happening. Like, you're doing so good. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm surviving.
Got to give yourself some grace, dude.
I know. That's the hardest play. And you get it. Just as a parent, I don't think you have to be an addict for that, right? But like that grace for just being a parent, I feel like is constant where it's like, well, I should have done this better. I shouldn't have done this. Like I said, I'm a yeller. I am a yeller at my kids. I will scream at them. They don't listen. At all. So I'm literally, I had to tell our neighbors, like, if you hear us all screaming, we are okay. I'm not beating them.
Yeah.
We're just all screaming.
Yeah.
And so, for example, today it was a hard day with the two kids. And I just felt like I was screaming the entire day. And as soon as I dropped them off, I'm like, God, I'm a shit mom.
Yeah.
But it's learning how to truly parent by myself in this home that I own by myself. And I've never owned anything. Nothing has ever been in my name. Each marriage, nothing was in my name. And the only thing I got from the second one was a car, which super grateful for, right? It was definitely kind of held over the head a few times. But, at the end of the day, like, he signed it over and I immediately got that bitch registered in my name. But I walked out of both marriages with nothing but kids. And so having this home and like going into survival mode and was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to pay it. I don't think I'm going to be able to do X, Y, Z. Did they look at the right income? Did they actually pay attention to the numbers? Like, I don't think I can do it. But just how like smooth everything went. It's like that feeling of like, okay, this is the right thing because of just how smooth everything was. And when I got into that house, I didn't know what to do. I was like, what the fuck do I do in here?
Yeah.
Like, how do I fix things?
Yeah.
Who do I call? What do I, what do I do?
Yeah.
And it was like during that time where I was like, fuck men. Fucking hate men.
Yeah.
They suck. I don't need a fucking man because look, I got 3 kids.
Yeah.
Fuck them. Right. And like that. And I got so jealous because I'm like, like my first ex-husband is living his life in New York. He left 8 years ago, is not, very hands off, very bare minimum. and my son is up there now for the first time ever. And so it's like, okay, you got remarried, you got to move on. Fuck you. My ex now, I'm like, when you don't have our daughter, you get to be free. Fuck you. I'm here with 3 kids. So fuck men. How about that?
Yeah.
And that's when I picked up on I'm going to redo my countertops. And I have no idea what I'm doing, but we're going to go and get some concrete. And we're just going to
do it.
We're just going to do it.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what I was doing. But I was like, we're trusting the process. And I did it. I fucking did it. And I was like, I'm going to redo the backsplash at some point. And I was doing the final sanding of the concrete. And I was so proud of myself. And I was in the corner and I saw one of the backsplash tiles kind of hanging forward. And I went to poke it back and it fell down. And I was like, no. And backsplash all came down. And so I was like, great.
Here we go.
Another project.
Yeah.
And I did it. And now it is shiplap, different stain shiplap. I've never cried during a project, but I cried during that one. And I have had many men say, like, I can remember the countertop, whether the countertops or the backsplash, where he was like, if you need some help, I was like, no.
Yeah. Fuck
No,
man.
I don't fucking need help.
Fuck man.
Yeah. And I did it. And
was Beyonce playing the whole time you were fucking doing that?
fuck
like
no.
the
It
shoes
was
on my
straight,
feet, I bought them. Like
Glorilla. Straight Glorilla. It was Glorilla and Megan Thee Stallion and some Billie Eilish in there. But like not like the sad ones lately. It was like her one that like, I don't know, that like psych ward one.
yeah.
That's all it was. That and like sometimes it was pure silence because I just was like, I could breathe for a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, I was inhaling concrete dust, but
Yeah.
I was like, better than methamphetamine.
Better than meth.
Yeah.
And so within that, like, you know, the past 6 months for sure, it was this constant feeling and fear of like, I can't do this. I can't do it. I'm unwanted, I'm undeserving, and I'm unloved, and I can't do it. And so trying to navigate everything internal while being sober, while raising the kids, and going through this divorce and dealing with my first ex-husband. It just, I was like, I don't think I can do this. And there's so many nights I went to bed crying. So many nights. Sometimes I go to bed crying just because I'm like, I'm so grateful for my life.
Yeah.
But this time I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, God, please help. Like those moments of desperation at night where you're just like silent crying.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like it's never going to end. And somehow, here we are. But it took a lot of praying, a lot of inventory, a lot of fucking inventory. I remember calling Carrie, my sponsor, and I was like, I'm fucking sick of writing inventory on these motherfuckers. Like,
Yeah.
it probably looks like I'm like some obsessed ex-wife
Yeah.
because I have like notebooks with like, I think actually I have like each notebook for each ex-husband.
That's a hell
And
of
I'm
an
like,
inventory.
Inventory on this one tonight. And it sucks when it's like on both of them at the same time. I'm like, God damn it. But it took a lot of inventory, a lot of fucking trust, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears physically to kind of get to this point.
How does it help you when you reach out to other addicts too? When you help other ones?
Yes.
Because I know that's what they always say, like when you're feeling in yourself,
Yes.
reach out to someone else. And I know on the days that I do that, when I call and check on somebody, even if I'm not their sponsor or anything, just checking on them gets me out of my own little shit for even just a second.
Yeah. I think,
Especially when I hear like some of the shit they're going through.
I'm like,
Oh, fuck, that's terrible.
There's so many times I used to call my ex-husband like, I'm so sorry. I really fucked up, you know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it does. And I remember going through, you know, in the big book where it talks about like if sex is troublesome, and it's like the sex conduct was so troublesome because I wanted to wring the necks of both of my ex-husbands, but I still so deeply loved this one, and I just didn't know what to do. And I kept going back. even though we had separated, we knew it was done. I personally still held on to that hope, and I kept going back. And it was like that constant, like, Becca, when is enough going to be enough? And I was like, this is the time. Like, I've called my sponsor. I'm like, this is the last time.
Yeah.
She's like, I won't judge you if you go back. And I'm like, I'm not going back. 2 weeks later, I'm like, this is the last time. And, but it's like calling another person truly does work. But I just don't want to do it because that makes me get out of myself.
Right.
And what I'm thinking right now, I'm living in it. I love it. I'm thinking of all the ways of how I'm going to fuck them over and be spiteful. And I'm like, look how strong and independent I am.
Yeah.
Do you want to come over? Like, but I do know, like, whenever Destiny calls me, I'm like, give it to me. She probably hears screaming and she's like, Jesus Christ, what's going on there?
Yeah.
I'm like, don't mind the kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, getting out of myself and like listening to somebody else and bringing back, what was taught to me within the steps, especially around sex inventory. I have had a lot of sponsors like say, this is what you need to do. Like, you need to cut it off. You need not have sex within the first year. You need to do this. You need to do that. And it's like, my sponsor now states it very clearly. I am not the arbitrator of your sex conduct. My only job is to tell you how you're showing up and where to bring God into it. And whatever you decide to do is what you decide to do. Just be honest with me.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way that she can help me.
Yeah. For sure.
And so, like, once that was brought to me and then I'm listening to other women, I'm like, holy shit. I just recited that? Why am I not listening to that shit?
Yeah.
Why am I, like, what? And so it helps me because I say that and then I'm like, wait a minute, bitch. Why are you not doing that?
Yeah.
Like, duh. And so knowing that I can, like, going through that really hard breakup into the divorce and being able to still utilize that pain and suffering to help someone else while I'm still in the shitstorm is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I mean, it definitely makes it feel like it's going to be worth it in the end. I wish it would have turned out differently, but I'm not angry anymore that it didn't turn out how I wanted to.
Well, good for you, man.
Good for you.
Yeah.
There's a quote that I like.
That's awesome though.
What,
So-
the countertops?
No, well, that too.
The backsplash.
The backsplash.
I'd fucking hire somebody. I'd go.
Dude, when
broke
you were saying countertops, I was thinking like tile, something kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when you mentioned the concrete, I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to fucking start on the concrete.
Nope. I'm all the way out.
Well, I was like, I could paint them. I was like, that's too easy. Why would I make it easy on myself? No. And I was like, concrete.
Yeah, dude.
There's a quote that I heard when I was in rehab that I use that helped me a lot, and I think that you can use it. You might not. Somebody might use it, but I used to always live in the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Right?
Oh, God.
Yeah, I would live in the shoulda, coulda, wouldas.
Yes.
Like if I could have done this or if I should have done this, and then when I got to rehab, then I started realizing like I wasn't as good of a dad as I told myself I was. Or pretended like I was.
Yes.
Like I show up to everything, but I'm 45 minutes late. You
Yes.
know? I show up to everything, but I'm not really here. I'm really trying to get to the bathroom to go get high again.
Yeah.
Right? And there was a point in my addiction where I was like, now I'm 42. I'm not 32 anymore. I can't even go back. So what am I going to stop for now?
Right.
But when I went in rehab, there was a quote that said, forgiveness has given up the hope that the past could have been any different. And when I heard that, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, who's to say that even if I would have done everything by the book, this isn't the path that God wanted me to go down anyways, right?
Yeah.
Like, even if I was the greatest dad or the greatest husband, or I still wouldn't have been divorced, or I still wouldn't have went through addiction, right? And that when I heard that quote, I was like, holy shit, maybe this is how God wanted me to get through it so we can go help other people get through it too.
Yeah.
And I seriously believe that's the reason that we go through the addiction part, is because especially now we see so many of our brothers and sisters that suffer from it,
Yeah.
and they don't know how to handle it. And the average person out there that's not one just thinks they're just fucked up. They're a junkie, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you just stop? Why can't you just stop?
I love
right?
that. I love
yeah.
that. I'm
When
like,
they
"Oh."
used to fire me from work, they'd be like, "We don't understand why you just can't quit." It's like, do y'all? It's like quit sex. How about that? You like
Yeah.
having sex with your wife? Stop doing it forever.
Quit it.
Don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And I truly believe that's the reason that we go through this is so we can get to the other end and we can help other people the way that we're able to help other people and other people can relate to us.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a thing, I heard this in church last week. The guy said that people want to speak on experience, but they've never experienced it. Right? People want to, like, I can't talk to somebody about what it's like to be homeless because I've never been homeless.
I've never been homeless.
I don't know what it's like to fly. Dude, we went camping last night, and
Brutal.
at 1 o'clock, we went in the fucking car to go to sleep because it was too fucking cold.
Yeah, why would you guys choose to go camping
Stop.
right now?
Yeah, you guys are fucking dumb.
We didn't know there was a cold front coming in. She told me
Mike.
the
Mike,
worst
you know it's
Valentine's
February.
ever.
Like,
Look, I didn't know there was a cold front coming in.
It's the one
and it
cold
was
month.
fun until it got cold.
I'm about to say I was shocked when I walked out this morning because yesterday it was nice and beautiful.
Yeah.
And then this morning I was, we were going out to play with some child, or I guess
Yeah.
I was going by myself because the kid that wanted to go didn't want to go anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, it's cold.
Freezing.
And then I saw y'all's Facebook post and I'm not even gonna lie, I was scrolling and I was like, what idiot?
Fucking
Yeah.
idiots.
You
So-
fucking dummies.
So look, we're sitting in that tent, and we bought one cover, right? We didn't buy two for the floor. We just have one, and I'm fucking freezing. And we can't even cuddle because we're fucking freezing. And she was like, "I'm going to the car. Will you please come with me?" And I could have probably stuck it out in the tent, but I'm not going to let her go to the car. So of course I went with her. And then the whole way home, we left at 5. We packed our tent and fucking left my nephew and everybody there.
Yeah, I would.
And on the way home, we were driving, and I was like, I have such empathy for homeless people
Yeah.
now. I always have, but how the fuck do they go through that every fucking night? Like it was 32 degrees or 34 degrees, and we
Yeah.
had a tent at least keeping us somewhat warm, and we had a blanket, and fucking we couldn't even make it through the whole night.
No, it's
So I can't talk to somebody about being homeless because I couldn't make that, right? I can't talk to somebody about living in the projects or being in Section 8 because
right.
I've never had to go through it.
Right.
But what I can do is I can talk to somebody about addiction.
Well, and I think also, because when I first went into the rooms, I was like, I'm not like you guys. I was
Yeah.
never homeless. I
Yeah.
was never, I wasn't an IV user.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do weird shit like boofing and whatever.
Yeah.
Like, no offense, but I was like, I ain't doing that shit. I'm a high class. Hold
Yeah.
on. I'm not sleeping with you to get some money to buy drugs. I'm sleeping with you and we're doing the drugs together.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I would go to these meetings and I would look at people and I'm not, even still to this day, I am fully okay with admitting that like I am a super judgmental bitch.
Me too.
Yeah.
Right? Like I love that. I never judge. Fuck off.
We
Yeah, you
all
do.
are.
Like as soon as I lay eyes on someone, my first thought is like, who the fuck are you? Or like, what are you wearing? Whatever.
Yeah.
And my sponsor was like, close your eyes when someone is sharing. And I was like, well, then I won't be able to know who's sharing. She's like, that's the point, bitch.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, ugh. And so I did. And like, that's where I was like, okay, holy shit, wait, I'm just like everyone.
Yeah.
And when I opened my eyes, I was relating the most to someone who was homeless.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
because it's that internal feeling, right? Like we didn't have to do the same thing, look the same way, do all the same shit. But that feeling of just like my sponsor put it perfectly. She said, your soul looks tired. And I was like, my soul is so fucking tired. And I
Yeah.
even get that way in sobriety where like I keep trying to do it my way. And to the point where I'm like, I'm not going to get high. I'm just going to die. I'm just going to kill myself. And I reached this point of where it's like, how long are you going to keep doing it this way?
Yeah.
Like my soul is fucking tired. And I think, within this last marriage, like it really got to where I was like, my soul is fucking tired. The last time that we had like an interaction in any like romantic way, you know, like when a woman stops crying, when a woman stops crying, that's when you know. Like, and I would call my friends, and they were over here like, bitch, why do you keep going back? Right? But like, they understood. It's a drug. He was a drug. I kept going back expecting something different. And it got to that point where I just was like, I'm not crying anymore because my soul was so fucking tired. And that's, you know, it was like the jumping off point where it's like, I can either keep doing this and kill myself, or I can go and like accept spiritual help and rely on the women around me. And when I first got sober, I didn't trust women. They either lied to me, they stole my dope, they slept with my husband, or they looked prettier than me.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't hard when you're getting high.
Yeah.
Like, I was such a beautiful girl. And I look back at pictures and I'm like, Jesus Christ. You know, like, wasn't that hard, Becca? But like, I didn't trust them. And I didn't trust women from my birth mother either. And so it was like, now when I look around my support group, there is not one man in sight. Well, that's a lie. Black Rob. But like, we go so far back.
Yeah.
But like the women around me have loved me and supported me through this entire process, through all of it. And especially this last year where like I kept going back and I kept, you know, crying over him and then defending him and being like, no, he's such a good person. And it's not that he's not a good person. He's a great person. I had to say that because I'm like, it's not that he's not a good person. He is. But it's like who I wanted him to be, you know? And I kept putting my head through a wall and being like, I don't understand. And it's not until the women around me were like, when are you going to see that you are deserving? When are you going to actually see that like you're a beautiful human being, that you're a great mom, that you're this, that you're that? And it got me, like, it took me to that point of where I finally was like, okay, my soul's tired. Like, when am I going to change something? And I think, you know, a lot of times for me, it's like, it's when I stop crying over something. That's when, like, the emotions are taken out and I'm able to act accordingly.
Makes a lot of sense. I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
Because when you stop crying over something, you're kind of over it.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, you're over it and you can look at it as, like, a rational, a logical thing that you can act accordingly to. Like, I'm not driven by those emotions. And, you know, I was that way with my first ex-husband for the last couple of years where, you know, whatever he said, whatever he did, I was like, yeah, whatever, you know, shocking kind of thing where it's like, I don't hate him. I don't love him. He's the boy's dad. Woohoo, you know? But with my oldest moving up there now, I've had to have a lot more interaction with him. And my oldest son is like, that's my ride or die.
Yeah.
You know? And like, he has been with me since birth. And I'm now giving him the opportunity to go and live with this man that has not had any take on his childhood, you know, on like no school interaction, no medical interaction, nothing. And, you know, recently it's like I'm giving him that massive piece of my heart and trying to take the emotional out of it has been extremely difficult. And it's got me a couple times, like the other night where I was like, you fucking bitch, you know, like going off on a stepmom and I'm sobbing and I'm like, you know, just like, you're calling me a fucking cunt, fuck you, you know, like I'm going to get on a plane right now.
Yeah.
Right. And like I wholeheartedly would have because like that's the impulsive batshit crazy things I do when it's based off from emotion.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, you know, the women around me, you know, I call them and I'm like, I'm going to get on a fucking plane. I'm going to beat the fuck out of her, you know? And she's like, no, you're not.
Not a good idea.
No, I'm not. Like, I'm not going to do it. Whatever, you know? And so, you know, I'm able to pause, right? And like take a step back and be like, okay, this isn't about me. It's not about her. It's not about their dad. It's about our son.
Yeah.
And when I'm able to take that emotional aspect and not cry over it anymore, then I can show up accordingly. And that's when I'm like the most useful to people.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I'll cry in a fucking chair. We all know. I love crying when I'm sharing. You know? I love it.
Yeah.
Drives it home.
I love it. Well, and it's, you know, it's hard because I think as, you know, addicts, like the longer we have sober, it's like almost like this idea that, the longer you're sober, the more put together you are.
Yeah.
And like if you cry in your shares or if you are a little bit of a shit show or whatever, it's like, oh, you must not be working your program.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm working it to the fullest. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm feeling all this shit. And
Yeah.
and what really got me there was I was the person, and I'm still the person. I'll share where I'm at. I will share to this day, like, I hate myself, stuff like that. And when I have felt like getting high, I will share about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I'm 4 or 5 years sober. I'll fucking share about it. I'll share about how I'm about to put a bullet in my head. Don't call me after, though.
Yeah.
I ain't answering my phone.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to you. Like, don't call. And I thought, when people are trying to, like, come here and, like, trying to hug me, like, get off.
I'm so sorry
Yeah.
you're going through that.
Yeah. Like,
My sponsor always says we pause when agitated. That's what it says in the book, right? We pause when agitated. And I fucking hate that line because he tells me that all the time.
Gross.
We pause when agitated.
no, we don't.
And like you were talking about emotions, my daughter's mom, we have a great relationship. And there's a lot of things where I let her win a lot of the little battles, and it's fine. It's like I put her through so much shit.
Yeah.
I feel like it's warranted,
Right.
right? Well, the other day she sent me a text, and it was like, so I coached Kaylin's volleyball team.
Yeah.
We have practice on Wednesday. We play on Friday. Fucking love doing it. Kaylin loves doing it. All the kids love me. So she sends me a text and she's like, hey, what do you think about me putting Kaylin in volleyball on Tuesday? It's a Tuesday practice and they play on Thursday. You'll have to bring her to the game. And I'm like, well, I can't coach her on Tuesday because I got to work. She's like, yeah, no, she'll be playing for a different team. So immediately I'm offended.
The mother in me is like,
I'm offended. I'm like, hold on, you're taking something I love doing, and you're going to put her in a different league where I can't coach her, and then I've got to bring her to her game. I don't mind going to a game, but I want to coach her. And she's like, well, that's real selfish of you. You want to be her only coach. And I'm like, dude, you're taking something away that we love doing. And I lost my shit with her. And then I said, you know what? Let me stop texting you. I'm just going to call you. Because apparently we don't communicate well through text like
Oh,
this.
Nobody
Right?
does.
Never.
Nobody
And I call her.
does. Stop texting each other when you're mad.
And I
Stop
call her,
doing that.
And she said, I said, how dare you call me selfish? She said, you didn't read my text right. She said, I'm not trying to take your volleyball away. I want to put her in another volleyball league so she plays twice a week so she gets better.
fuck.
I'm like, fuck.
Right? Like,
Fuck. I said, that's my bad.
right. Oh, it's
She
moments
said,
like
yeah,
that where
so
I'm like,
you can still have her on Wednesday. I'm just asking, since it's my day on Tuesday, her day, I'll bring her to her practice. You don't have to do that. But since the game falls on Thursday, if you're willing
Yeah.
to take her to her game, I'm like, oh.
We pause when agitated,
Right.
Mike.
So I went and told my sponsor, and he was like, what, did
We
you
pause when agitated.
Did you pause? Because it sounded like you got pissed.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't pause at all. I fucking
No.
reacted
What do you
immediately.
mean?
Fucking
Pausing?
and then, it's something that me and Destiny's always like. Destiny doesn't understand sometimes how I let her have her way a lot of times, right? And I'm like, it's not really that big of a deal. Like I took my way and my advantage for such a long time but on that moment, when I heard she was taking volley, that's what my drug addict mind, and the devil is saying, she's trying to take that shit from you. I'm like, hell no, not today. And I was completely fucking out of line and wrong.
see,
And I had to call her and say, hey, I apologize. And then I have to worry about, like, does she think I'm going back to the drug addict mentalities? Maybe she gonna fucking, are you using again? Because that's how the old Mike would have acted.
people say
Yeah.
that. Like,
Yeah.
are you getting high again? Fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to have emotions. Like, and maybe that's like a male female thing because like there are times when like, my either ex-husband, will text me and like I'm responding, if I'm texting you and I got 3 kids or at least 2 kids right now running around like just batshit, I'm not texting you warmly.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool. Love that. Whatever.
Thumb up.
Like thumbs up. And then it's like, why are you being a bitch? Or like, what's wrong with you? And it's like, nothing. Like what? And I think, when I am texting something just very like, hey, this is what's going on. Can you do that? They're like, well, what's your problem? And I'm like, what? And then they call me and I'm like, hey, what's going on?
Context is a motherfucker,
it's
man.
most of the time, you can tell the shit. Once I have that shift, you can tell.
Yeah.
Because that's when I'm like, fuck you, like going off, cursing,
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
But most of the time when I am texting, it's really not, it's read out of context.
Yeah.
And then it turns into an argument.
Yeah.
And it's like, Jesus.
Yeah.
That's what I had to tell her. Hey, look, let's stop texting on shit like that. Like, let's text and like, hey, are you picking up Kaylin at 4? Cool, perfect. Those are good texts. But when we're gonna try to change shit or add shit, let's just call each other, because I do take them out of fucking context.
Yeah.
Because even now, and it's not.
does.
Yeah,
so bad.
but for me,
Everybody.
during my addiction, I always felt like, how is she trying to get over on me? And she never was.
Right.
But I always felt like you're trying to get an upper hand on me. Or like if she offered, do you want me to pick Kaylin up for you today? I'm like, what's in it for you? Like, why is she doing this? Why is she being nice?
Right.
And I still have that mentality sometimes. Even though I'm 3 years sober, I was 10 years like that.
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to wash away that, and it still fucking pops up sometimes.
Yeah.
And it sucks.
It's super easy for it too. Like if
Yeah.
you catch me on it could be like a split second that you caught me at a time where usually when like I'm in my own head and I'm super insecure and I'm like, I'm not a good mom, I'm this, I'm that. And they're like, hey, you didn't do this. And I'm like, fuck you. You know, like you don't even do this, and that. Like I just pop off.
Yeah.
Because and it was for so long, people have walked around on eggshells around me, and I'm like, "What's wrong, guys? Like, why are we doing this?"
Yeah.
And then, like the next moment, I'm like, "All of you are gonna die!"
everyone.
Yeah, like fuck
Kill
you guys.
everybody in this room.
Lighting the house on fire. I don't even want it anymore. And I forget that like I was so like erratic from what 16 till 25.
Yeah.
Just insane. And even into especially this last 2 years for sure, where like, the mental health took over, and it's like, we don't know, when is back. I mean, there was one time, in my last relationship where it was the smallest thing. Everything was fine. We had like a little bit of not even really an argument. We were separating.
Yeah.
And I walked out of the bedroom and he locked the door. And that's where therapy, like EMDR therapy, that's when I decided like, okay, now's the time I need to jump into that, because something flipped in my mind. As soon as I heard that door lock, something flipped in my mind. And like, I just started kicking the door down, like trying to kick it in. Strong fucking door. Strong door. It was not kicking in. But then for like a moment, I was like, whoa, what the fuck are you doing, Becca? I'm sure he's on the other side, like getting ready to like start decking me. He's like, I'm waiting for this bitch. She
Getting the old
attacked
football
me.
helmet on. Like, oh,
He's got his
shit.
feet up against the door, holding it shut.
Probably. Well, he's probably like, this bitch assaulted me last year.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
she got a knife now, you
Yeah.
know? And it's like in that split second. And then like a day later, I'm like, what's wrong, guys?
Yeah.
Why is everyone so scared? Why is everyone
Why are you
freaking out?
changing the locks? What the
Right?
fuck's going on?
Like, what happened? And I do forget that I do it. And then I'm like, well, what's wrong, guys? I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's like, I think it was forever ago. And in their mind, it's like, that was a year ago, dude. Like, that's not that long
Just
ago.
yesterday.
Or
And
I
in
couldn't
my
feel
head-
yesterday.
Yeah, in my head, I'm like,
No, I washed that
it's
shit
like
down.
7 years ago, guys. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it might be just like I'm trying to like blot out like the things that I deem as like super shitty.
Yeah.
Or like things that I'm like super ashamed of that I've done sober. Cause like I don't even have the excuse of like,
I was high.
I was high. Like I was in active addiction, you
Yeah.
know, and even when I was on, trying to get stabilized on bipolar meds, which is a long journey. It was like, it got to where I was like, I don't even have that excuse anymore of like, I'm mentally unstable. Because I wasn't fully mentally unstable. Definitely was not on the right meds. I didn't get on those until probably February of last year is when I finally got on the right, like meds that are tremendous for me. But it's like, I don't have an excuse anymore. What is the excuse?
It's a good thing. It's a beautiful thing. It really is.
It is a beautiful thing.
I mean, I know that sucks sometimes, but accountability is a motherfucker.
It's a fucking motherfucker.
It's a
But there's like
motherfucker.
power in that.
Yeah.
Right? Like the most like beautiful thing that I've experienced within this year is like, I don't like making amends. Like, I don't. People are like, I'm so excited for a man. Fuck that.
Yeah.
No, I have to go to you and tell you how I was wrong. I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
You're wrong. And even if I'm wrong, I'm not. Like, this is why I did it.
Yeah.
Like, it's you. It is you.
Yeah.
Like I was wrong, but
Yes. And especially, like friends that I'm one where like with friends, I'm like, okay, well, we had like an interaction, so I'm just not going to talk to him again. I have like 5 other ones. Like, I don't really need them anymore. And so like, I'll ghost them. And then I'll see him again. And I'm like, oh my God, it's been so long. And they're like, yeah, did you get a new number? And I'm like, no, it's so weird.
Yeah.
Text might not be going through. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to like take accountability. Not even like, I most recently I had this like really weird interaction with one of my best friends. And she's been a major supporter, but like so weird. I don't know. It was a group text that we were in, and I was like joking about like this all natural organic and joking about it, right? And she had texted me and was like, hey, one of us might be offended. And I was like, okay. Ew.
Yeah.
But I was like, what? It's just, I didn't like it. It felt weird. And she called me and she was like, I feel like you're shutting down. And I was like, no. Yes, bitch. Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Get off my phone.
Yeah.
And I really almost was like, I'm just going to delete all the group chats. I'm never going to talk to her again. If I see her, I'd be like, that's so weird. Do you have my new number? And like knowing me, I would go out and like get a new number. Like just be like, But at like working through that and seeing like, okay, wait, I really want to keep this friends. Like, what do I need to do? Like, I have to make amends.
Yeah.
For shutting down and like not communicating. And the most humbling experience is making amends to baby daddies.
Oh, yeah.
As a baby mama, I feel I am always in the right. Like, I birthed these little shitheads.
Yeah.
You don't know a goddamn
Yeah.
thing. Like, even if I am wrong, I'm not. Like, they literally came out of me.
Yeah.
And one of the hardest parts was like making an amends in a household where people had come out of me or had been into me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't owe you anything. I don't
Yeah.
owe you. I don't owe you. Matter of fact, I own all of you.
Yeah.
But now, it's like making these amends, like, one of them tells me, you just say shitty things so that way, because you can make an amends for it later. And I'm like, you think I like going back to you to make a fucking amends?
Mm-hmm.
Buddy, I will die on the self-righteous hill. But, like, I want to stay sober.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want to, like, enjoy my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so taking that accountability of, like, even though I was right, could have said it differently.
Yeah.
And that was another big thing, because a lot of times I've had sponsees who are like, I'm not sorry for what I did. I was like, no one's asking you to be sorry. I'm not sorry for 99% of the shit I did. I did it intentionally. What do you mean? I hurt your feelings intentionally. But nowadays it's like, I'm not sorry for what I said. I'm sorry for how I said it.
Yeah.
And I just had to do that to a girl at work who is constantly high on weed. And I'm like, stop getting high. You're fucking up my paycheck. And as I made an amends and was like, I'm not sorry. Like, I meant what I said, but I didn't have to say it like that. She's like, I'm stoned while I was making this amends.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
But, taking that accountability of like, I can be a better person.
That's what it's all about. I mean, for all of us, really. I mean,
Even normal people.
what I'm saying, like and we're all normal people. You cannot fucking
Fair.
You cannot fucking convince me otherwise. We're all fucking normal. It's just the road you guys had to travel to get there is it's a little bit more
different.
of a motherfucker than mine, And
Very true, but if only every person in the world was like forced to work a 12-step program.
bro, I've said it, and I've told this motherfucker, as soon as he's done, I'll work the 12 steps with him.
Dude,
when he gets done with his
experience that
yeah. I want to do it.
so humbling.
I really do, and it won't apply to alcohol or drugs for me. It might be fucking harder because of it.
Yeah, I realized that the 12 steps, like, yeah, they got me sober, but like how they keep me sober is like now that when it's applied, it's not around drugs and alcohol anymore.
Yeah.
It's about like real life shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I'm like, how do I live like this? And my
Yeah.
sponsor is like, here you go. And I'm like, I did that to get sober. And she's like, you do that to stay sober.
Yeah. Man.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on.
You're
This was
welcome.
fucking
Thanks for
awesome.
having me.
No, this was
I
great.
was so nervous at
I-
first. And I was like,
And you settled right the fuck in.
I did.
You just forgot about everything.
I totally did.
I told you that was going to happen. You did great. Great
Thanks.
story. We'd love to have you back on. We always say this, but when you go up on that wall, you're part of the family now, and our doors are always open to you. And if you need us to show up for anything that you're involved in, we're happy to do it. And, but thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
How do people find you?
How do people find me?
Yeah. What's your phone number and social security number and shit?
I mean, here, you can take my social because I'm in so much debt. Like, you can have it.
Now, how do they find you on social media?
Social media.
If any women want to reach out to you,
Facebook.
Facebook.
I want to say that, like, I'm big on social media. I have an Instagram, but it's connected to my Facebook. I don't ever look at it. But Facebook, Becca Hamill.
Okay.
BECKAHAMEL. Becca Hamill. I think I'm sitting on the ground with, like, I'm like,
Yeah. Well,
freaking weirdo.
reach out.
Yeah,
Probably got a
reach out
lot
to
of insights that could help you out.
I'll do my best.
Thanks, Becca.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
And just like that,
Just like that.
two addicts and a moron.
We're done.
We're out of this motherfucker.
Yay.